So most likely, this month is probably going to be the last month and I'm probably going to have credit cards as a part of my wallet. And then after that, I'm basically just canceling all of them and cutting them up, okay? And I don't pay any interest, I don't pay any fees, and in reality, it actually maintains my credit score. But by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly why I no longer really care about those things, okay? Now, one of my favorite fairy tales is, by the way, I don't know that many fairy tales, honestly, but one of my favorite ones is basically Red Riding Hood. And it's when Red Riding Hood walks into the cabin and she's talking to her grandma, and she slowly starts to realize, like, hey grandma, what big teeth you have, what big hands you have, what big this you have. And in the end, she finds out, yo, this is not my grandma, it is a wolf, and the wolf ate the grandma. And in the real story, the wolf also eats Red Riding Hood, okay? This is what I heard from like a TikTok or whatever. But the idea is this, okay, guys? When you think about credit cards, you come to find out, once you do the research, you do the due diligence, you find out that basically these people are not here to help you. They're not your friends. They don't care about your financial stuff. They don't care about giving you advice. What they really care about is basically, how can we get the most money out of this person? And once you figure that out, you kind of see, hey, this is not really my grandma, it's actually a wolf. And this wolf wants my money, basically, okay? And they want me to be in debt so that way I can pay money to them and they can make money off of me. That's the concept, that's the idea. And in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 reasons how this actually works when it comes to credit cards, okay? So, as always, guys, like this video. On top of that, also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. Now, the very first thing is this. So number one, guys, is that credit card companies, they use what they call, for example, incentives. And incentives, according to the dictionary, is basically a thing that motivates you to take an action that that person wants you to take. In very common words, kind of like whenever you want a kid to do something, you're like, hey, if you do this, Johnny, I'm going to give you a lollipop. Or I'm gonna take you to Disney World, and then all of a sudden the kid is at the dentist or whatever. Okay, that's the point. An incentive is something that people use to basically get you to do something or motivate you to do something that actually want you to do. So credit card companies know this very well, and they use a lot of positive incentives to actually get you to start using credit cards. Okay, so incentives like these. Okay, first of all, they tell you, for example, hey, you're getting this credit card offer because you've earned it. That makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I've earned this, okay? So I should definitely get this. I deserve this. Number 2, they also tell you, get this credit card because if anything does happen, at least you have, for example, an emergency. And you're like, okay, yeah, that does make sense. I should have this credit card because if anything does happen, I have it there just in case. Number 3 is, okay, this is gonna help you prepare for the future via building credit. That's also an incentive because basically if you use a credit card, that registers, right? And it gets you payments and you build your credit score or whatever. But in reality, here's what they don't tell you. First of all, you didn't earn anything, okay? No one earns anything. When you turn 18, you got a job and you get a credit card offer, you didn't earn anything. They just have you in their database, and what they do is send you an offer and they know the risk. So that's why what you usually get, okay, is like a small balance to kind of play with, okay? They give you a small limit. Hey, here's $200. Here's $500, $1,000. My first limit was like $2,000. Did I earn that? The answer was a whopping no. But what they do is they get you in the door via, hey, you earned this. You must be responsible. You're ready for this, okay? Then number 2 is, guys, okay, emergencies, okay? You should have this credit card in case anything goes wrong. You ever seen someone try to put out a fire with more fire? Like, how the heck does a credit card help you during times of emergency if once the emergency passes, you're left with a bunch of debts and a bunch of interest to basically pay on it? Imagine that, okay? Something happens, swipe, go ahead. Now I'm paying 18, 25% on this emergency, for example, okay? It's not helpful. It's just helping me dig this hole even deeper. Number 3 is, okay, building credit. Building credit is sold to us like this thing that's mandatory. It's not mandatory. To get an apartment, you don't need to have credit. To buy a house, you don't need to have credit. To buy a car, you don't need to have credit. Tommy, what do you mean? You need credit for all these things. The answer is credit as a factor, as what you see, for example, your FICO score, is just like a digital version of what you actually have in real life. So for example, if I go to a bank and I tell them, hey, I don't have a FICO score, I don't have any credit score, so what are you gonna do? I wanna buy this house. They're like, okay, so let's do some manual underwriting. So what they do is they see my income. Can we see your pay stub for the past 6 months? Okay, you've been earning income, you're very stable there, awesome. Show us your tax returns, great stuff. We have proof. Then show us your bills. What bills have you been paying? Okay, do you have a good track record? Yeah, I've been paying my energy bill, my gas bill, my this bill for like consistently without missing payments for this long. And they build you a profile. And based on that profile, they give you an interest rate that's based on what you deserve to actually have. But my point is, all these little incentives of you deserve it, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, you're gonna build credit, and then also it's for emergencies. All these things are just a way to get you in their credit card system, okay? It's a gateway. That's why they call like a credit card like the gateway drug of finance, because it's the way everyone kind of builds up into terrible finances habits, okay? Terrible financial habits, okay? We all start there usually because it's like one of the easiest forms, and before you know it, you're like $4,000 or $5,000 in debt, and you're like, how do I get out of it? And you don't know what you spent the money on whatsoever. So terrible, terrible stuff, okay? Now, number two is, second thing they offer you, and what they don't want you to know is this, okay? Points. And the points factor is very hard for someone to wrap their minds around this, okay? People tell me all the time, tell me, points and cashback, miles, all this stuff is just positive on my entire balance sheet, because overall, I'm spending money I would have spent anyways. I'm paying it off at the end of the month. I'm not paying any interest. So what's the big difference? And by the way, that's a very small amount of people, because a lot of people don't admit they pay interest, they miss payments, they have late fees. They don't admit those things, okay? But for those people that actually do pay on time, here's what they actually don't know. First of all, 70% of points, they're not used. They're not actually redeemed. They kind of just sit there. So they're not even utilizing those things. Number two is 18% more. What are you talking about, Tommy? Well, the average person, when they use credit, they tend to spend 18% more on average than they would if they use a debit card or, for example, cash. Overall, it's more like with plastic, because whenever you spend cash, you feel that pain receptor in your brain that tells you, hey, you're spending money. But with credit, it's different, because you get to buy whatever you want right now with money you don't have, and you pay it later, or you never pay and you just keep paying your credit until it's done. Okay, that's the idea. And then you also just have, for example, common sense. Common sense shows that if a person is using credit cards, for example, 100% of them are in debt. And it's kind of true, right? So if you want to live, for example, a debt-free lifestyle and you have credit cards, you're always going to be in debt, because the only way to maintain a credit score, which is showing you how good you are with debt, is to have some way to manage debt and to prove that you actually are good with debt. So you're always in a cycle of getting into more and more debt. Now, the third thing, guys, is that credit cards, they use all these promotions, okay? Promotions like no interest, you got a sign up bonus, and you can have, for example, 18 months on purchases and all this other stuff. And guess what, guys, okay? I've done all of these things. I've signed up for the credit cards that gave me $200, $300 in bonus points. I've done the credit cards that give me a bunch of cash back. I've done the credit card that allow me, for example, to go 18 months without paying anything. And then at the end, you kind of pay something, but if you pay it off in time, you don't have to pay anything. I've done all those things, you know? And all those things are just, again, more incentives and more tricks to just get you to build up a balance, okay? A credit card company does not make money when you spend money. Well, they do, because transactions also make them money, but they make the biggest part of their money via charging you interest. Charging someone 18%, 24%, 30%. Guess what? If I could get an investment that pays me that much money, I would put all my money into it, because it would be a good investment, okay? But overall, the incentive here is you sign up for something and you get money. Nothing is free, obviously. So what does that mean? They have the stats, and the data shows that on average, these people that basically have to, by the way, most of those sign-up bonuses, you got to spend money to actually get them, right? Whether it's 2,000, 4,000, or 3,000 on average within 3 months or 6 months of you actually getting the card. If you think about it, you spend those 3 months acquiring a balance, and then you get back $200, and then you spend a long time paying back that thing with interest. Not a good idea. And then also, for example, with like building up and buying whatever you want, and then 18 months later, no interest whatsoever, you build up that balance. That's how credit cards basically make money. And I've learned something along the way here. Most people, they end up with a balance. Most people end up paying them their interest back. So the credit card companies actually make their investment back. And then thirdly, when I did all this stuff, I got very lucky, because I could have ended a lot worse. So how can you basically not be a part of the system anymore? You know, my advice is, if you haven't tasted the rainbow of credit cards, just don't taste it. If you're in high school watching this video and you're like, I'm gonna get a credit card next year, you don't need it. You probably don't get it, okay? That would be my advice. If I could start the whole thing over, I would have done the whole thing without a credit card. And when I think about like all the things I have today, none of it I actually got it with credit. For example, okay, my house, I bought it without credit. My car, I bought it without credit. Like all these things, my phone, bought it without credit. All these things, you don't actually need credit to actually get it. Credit is just the biggest incentive they give you, or the biggest reasoning they give you, because it kind of makes you feel like if you don't have credit, you're responsible. So you have to get a credit card. That's how they make it seem, right? Like it's just a natural thing to actually do. But yeah, overall, guys, here's my last tip here. The reason I said at the start of this video that this is probably going to be my last year with credit cards is because in reality, I've noticed that even though I don't use my credit card like the average person does, every now and then I do use it, you know, and I have to like pay it off at the end of the month, no interest, no fees, whatever. But I do find myself still using it every now and then. So by eliminating that option, you basically just have to figure it out. And if you're responsible, you organize things correctly, everything's gonna be fine. And even me, someone that has spent almost a decade studying this game, guess what? Every now and then, I lose track of my spending if I'm spending with plastic a lot. So every now and then, I gotta take a pause and say, hey, what's going on here? That's not how it's supposed to be. And you kind of just retrack your steps and make better decisions. So it's like, if you think you're smart, remember, these people spend millions of dollars on psychology, on good marketing and good tactics and just incentives to actually get you to do what they do. And when you look at the broad statistics, everyone's usually failing. And the people that are not failing, they're not like they're making anything. So it's like what's the point of playing the game? That's why I'm becoming a lot more like not even interested in it now. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, comment down below card, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. That is card, C-A-R-D, not car as in C-A-R, because that would be a vehicle, and this video is not about vehicles, is it? So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Up here is another video. Over here in my face. And by the way, comment down any questions. That's what I'm here for, to respond and to help if I can. And if you disagree with me, comment down below. Let me know. Okay, so I might see questions like, Tommy, but credit is important because if you want to buy a house, again, manual underwriting just destroys that. But Tommy, what about the points that you actually get? Average person is overspending. But Tommy, what if I have a perfect budget and I'm basically spending X? And if you want to play that game, you can play that game. You know, what I do with these videos is I tell you what works best for me and what for the average person does. And that's basically it. But it's not to say that if you do what you do, you have to see what your results have been and say, hey, are these good results? You know, and if it's not, then you got to consider maybe not doing that anymore. But that's it. All right. Peace out. Long-term team officially out.